All right, everyone, welcome to the Sugar House Community Council meeting. Thank you again for tuning in tonight and always taking the time. So we have a full agenda again. Senator Yamamoto's trying to get on, so we'll see. I see Senator Brian King, so maybe we'll have him speak for a minute if he's willing. So congratulations to Councilwoman Amy Fowler for winning re-election. We look forward to helping her get some work done. Also, congratulations to Ben Raskin and Rainier Huck for a good race. A couple of updates. Our CIP application for the beautification of 1300 East off-ramp has moved on to the second stage, so that's good news. ACE funding is now open until December 3rd. I think Tim Cosgrove will talk a little bit more about that. We had the privilege of working with Tree Utah and planting a grove of trees in Hidden Hollow in honor of Lynn Olson's husband, Neil, which was awesome. Detective Norgard can't join us tonight, but he wanted me to pass along a few things. So these are all his words. In the last month, there were 17 business burglaries. Only 2 of those were committed after officers caught the organized burglary crew on October 14th. So that's a tremendous improvement. Some Weisenheimer dropped a firecracker in the restroom at Sugar House Park, causing what was described as a biohazard issue. No significant damage other than an injured toilet, and responding officers lost their appetites for a couple of hours. 28 vehicle break-ins. This is a lot. Please do not leave any valuables or anything that remotely resembles valuables in your vehicles. Take an extra second and ensure that anything that can be stolen is secured in the trunk or otherwise hidden, and make sure your car doors are locked. 26 traffic accidents. Drive safely, and remember, we all have to watch the other drivers and be ready to react to their mistakes. Call response times are improving, but it's still a work in progress. And then lastly, during cold weather months, we see a spike in vehicle thefts. This is due to folks warming up their cars in the driveway and then leaving them unattended. Please stay in close proximity to your vehicle when it is warming up, and remember to clear your car of snow and scrape your windshields of ice. Don't be that guy or gal who causes an accident because your windshield was iced over. Also check your tire treads and tire pressure. Tires with inadequate treads versus slick roads equals disaster. Most tire shops will inspect your tires, but if you feel uncomfortable with going to a tire shop, please reach out to knowledgeable friends, neighbors, family members, or even myself to look at your tires. Not me, him. I wouldn't know what to look for. All trustees should have received ballots. Benny said you could reach out to him if you're having trouble filling it out. So it's our election tonight. Cutoff time is at 8 p.m. And then Benny will announce around 8:15 or so. Is she on, Brandon?
Who was that? Sorry.
Senator Yamamoto. I don't see her. Let's have Brian. Senator King, are you okay to talk for a few minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We've got several issues that we're dealing with up at the legislature right now. One is, redistricting is in full swing this week. The Independent Redistricting Commission made its report to the Legislative Redistricting Committee on Monday. They've done their substantive work, the Independent Redistricting Commission, and they've come up with some maps that they've presented to the committee, the legislative committee, for the committee's consideration. Under the state constitution, it's the legislature that has the final say about redistricting lines. And I don't know that that's necessarily the best thing, quite honestly, simply because it's very hard to draw lines when your own political future is at stake. It's hard to leave your own self-interest out of that equation. And so it's very good, I think, to have the Independent Redistricting Commission out there making recommendations and sort of watching over the shoulder of the legislature as it makes these decisions about how we're going to do redistricting. There are 4 maps that we're drawing in the process. This week, the Legislative Redistricting Committee is making its final recommendations, and we will come into a special session beginning next week. We'll actually be in special session beginning on Tuesday the 9th, and will be available, depending on what needs to be done, the rest of that week and the week after. The only exception will be on Veterans Day, which, because it's a federal holiday, we'll be taking off. And Otherwise, we'll be potentially going through November 19th to come to some conclusions and make some final decisions about what the maps look like. There are 4 maps that we're drawing. One is the state school board map. That's the least political of the 4. The other 2, the next 2 are the 2 legislative maps, one for the state house, one for the state senate. And then the final map that we'll be drawing, and the one that's most controversial and most politically contaminated, you could say, is the congressional map, the map that draws our 4 congressional districts for the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. So, you know, I to those on the call who have provided input, testified, submitted maps, thank you. I think this is an important process. I think it's very important that we hear from people. And I honestly think that there's going to be a good likelihood that for the state school board maps, for example, input from the public is going to be taken into account. I think some input from the public is going to be taken into account for the state house and the state senate maps. The one that's the most likely to sort of get hijacked by outside political interests, and by outside, I mean outside the state of Utah political interests, is the congressional map. I think that's the one where I was on the redistricting committee back in 2011. And when it came time for us to do the congressional maps, larger national political voices just came in and basically said, this is what we want you to do. And it was frustrating, but that was a political reality that we dealt with. So my hope is the Independent Redistricting Commission has some impact of lessening, of reducing the degree of partisanship and political game playing associated with the redistricting process. But at any rate, within a couple of weeks, we'll know what the new maps look like. So there's that we're working on. We've also been working on some issues involving COVID. We've been working on some clean air and clean water issues, environmental issues, and by we, I mean the members of the State House, members of the Democratic House Caucus have been working on those things. One of the things that's interesting that I'll raise for everyone's consideration that has gotten a lot more attention just in the last 3 or 4 months. It's always been an issue, but it's gotten a lot more high visibility, and people are starting to get educated and sensitized to it, is the Great Salt Lake, the fortune of the Great Salt Lake. We live in a place that depends for our quality of life on that lake existing. If we didn't have the Great Salt Lake out there, we would be pretty miserable. And the reason is we would have dirt and dust, and the air quality would be dramatically worse from stuff that would be blowing in off that section of what would not be a lake. It'd just be dried up sand and grit and chemicals, not chemicals so much, but there's a lot of stuff that's been dumped in the lake for many, many years, things like arsenic and other toxic residue that would be floating in, being blown into the Salt Lake Valley. So that's just one angle of why we need the Great Salt Lake and why we need it healthy. And the reality is that it's at its lowest level in a long, long time. And there's a concern that if it reaches a critical threshold, if it lowers to a point where there's some critical bio diversity and biological combinations that take place in the lake, if we keep losing water out of that lake, we're going to have a point of no return where it becomes even more problematic than it is right now. So we're gathering, it's a complex issue though, and we're gathering more information about it. I've talked to the speaker about it myself. I've said, Mr. Speaker, can't we do something to address the lake? And he looked at me and he said, I agree entirely with you. And he has indicated, along with a number of other legislators, that the concern about the future of the Great Salt Lake and the impact it has on our quality of life is something that has gained a lot more information on in the last few months, and a lot of us up there have. And so I'm happy to say that I think there's going to be some action on that, hopefully, that addresses some of the concerns. We got to quit diverting water that usually goes into the Great Salt Lake thing from places like the Bear River and our canyon streams, Big Cottonwood, Little Cottonwood, all the streams that come out into the Salt Lake Valley. They have a pretty direct shot to the lake, but the Bear River is a primary source of water for the lake, and it's also historically been diverted quite a bit. And there are some people even now that want to continue to divert it for agricultural uses or other uses up in the Cache County area as it comes down through that part of the state. So we need to make sure that we do a better job of preserving the quality of the water, and then more important, the quantity of the water that gets to the Great Salt Lake so that it doesn't continue to drop in its elevation levels. Happy to take any questions or get any comments from you.
Hey, Brian, because of Zoom bombing, we take all questions in the chat, so everybody's muted. So if you just stick around, maybe type a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
I've got the chat bar open.
Thank you.
I'll answer
Okay.
any questions.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to Mike Bagley with the Treasury Report. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, hi, everybody. You can hear me all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Cool. Okay, it's a pretty simple report. So I checked the balance today, US Bank, we're at $8,396.91. And not much activity. We made a few pennies in interest over the month. And we wrote a check, like Landon mentioned at the start of the top of the meeting, that donation to Tree Utah. That was $700 to support those plantings there in Hidden Hollow that he mentioned. And no activity on the PayPal account balance. And that's where we're at. Any questions? I guess I'll just take those in the chat if they come up.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. I think the fire department's having trouble getting on, so we'll keep working with them. We're going to unmute Jeremy Higginson. So we have a new trustee joining us tonight. He's filled out his thing. Jeremy, you on?
Yeah.
He's going to be a Garfield trustee. This will fill that role. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Jeremy Higginson. I've lived in Salt Lake all my life. I know many of you, I think, already, but yeah, I live just right by Sugar House Park. I've been in real estate since 2001, all in the sales, mortgages, and I own a construction company. Yeah, I mean, I've got 5 kids, and yeah, I like to, I used to be on the Sugar House chamber back in the day when we had the 4th of July fireworks, and that was quite the, as those of us that were around back then, that was a lot of work. So I don't know, that's kind of me in a short nutshell. I like golf. So
Awesome. Thank you. We will send out something to the trustees and we'll do a vote that way. This is way too hard, but we'll have you sit with us next month.
cool.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to, we're gonna do a spotlight on business tonight. It's the bar method down in Sugar House. Christine, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead and
I'm here.
introduce yourself.
Looks like you can all see my email address. So if you
Yeah.
need anything, shoot me an email. I'm
CRM.
available. I'm here from the Bar Method. We're located in the heart of Sugar House, right on 2100 South with 1057 East. You may have walked by it a million times like I have. Before I went in, I walked by it so many times and didn't have any idea what it was. Our parking and entrance are, you'll find that around the back with plenty of parking. We have classes from 6 a.m. until about 6 or 7 at night, depending on the night, 7 days a week. We're a boutique style fitness studio. So that means we're small, personalized. I'd always wanted to work out. I pictured myself being that kind of girl, but I was always too intimidated to go to a studio like that. But this one is totally different. The second you walk in, you're welcomed by name, you're greeted, given a tour around the space. It's a beautiful studio with exposed brick, and we have a carpeted floor. It's gorgeous. We've got low impact exercises, and they were created with the physical therapists, so it's for all ages. We have all ages from 16 all the way up to 73. Literally anybody can get something out of the Bar Method. Our instructors are highly trained. They're recertified every single year. so that they're very knowledgeable. It's sort of like having a personal trainer in that they're always scanning the room looking for ways to keep you safe and in the muscle. We use small isometric movements and light weights, your own body weight, and a ballet bar. Our focus is on strength. And what else do I have? We've got a retail boutique in the front of the studio that has a lot of really great brands like Lululemon, Beyond Yoga, Viore. Right now we have a promotion, 2 weeks for $39. And anyone on this Zoom meeting, if you use the Sugar House Strong promo code, you can get a free class. You should come on in and check it out. The first class I took 7 years ago, I've been hooked ever since.
Awesome, thank you. And your story is great. All right, let's go to, so there's an event happening. Steph, you ready? Steph, you ready? Or maybe she's not there. Hey, Stephanie. All right, we'll try her again. Let's go to Tim Cosgrove. I know he'll be ready. Brandon, do you see him? Okay, Tim.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Landon. Wow, it's busy agenda tonight. It's been a busy last 2-3 weeks since we met last. There's a lot going on. Mayor Mendenhall announced her recommendations and laid out our plans for President Biden's American Rescue Plan. The funding that we received as the city was $85 million, and it arrives in 2 installments. There's a lot of information there. I'll put the press announcement in the chat and the mayor's presentation also in the chat. But just to give you a quick, brief overview, we're looking at investing $10 million in child care, early child care education, workforce training to increase the skills and earning potential of parents. There's $3.9 million set aside as an investment in the creation of Salt Lake City Parks and Public Lands Park Rangers. And this will be focused on Fairmont Park, Fairmont, Liberty, Pioneer, and I'm forgetting the parks, but I'll put that in the details as well. Community grant pool, which is $4 million set aside, which would be split between the community and neighborhood department and the economic development department for community-based organizations to participate in support nonprofits that were hit that were hit more difficult during COVID, had more of an difficult impact during COVID. There was also $4 million set aside for a new city endeavor for the West Side community for a land initiative, and that urban land fund would help residents build a financial foundation that would help access affordable housing and home ownership. Clean neighborhood team, that's part of our continuation of the community commitment program with rapid response intervention team, that those dollars help to intervene with our persons experiencing homelessness and their needs and help with public spaces and for them to remain clean and safe and accessible to all people. And then $55 million was set aside to ensure the financial foundation of Salt Lake City and its employees. You know, when COVID hit, the city council and the mayor had to freeze all city budgets from hiring additional employees, and we had a lot of attrition during that time period. We were operating with skeleton crews. You probably felt the largest hit was impacted by our law enforcement, our police department. Even though there were many departments hit, they were hit the hardest. And this money is set aside to ensure that we can restore and ensure that those city services are provided to the residents and the residents of Salt Lake City during these difficult times. And there was so much. Oh, the mayor announced Clean Energy Initiative. We partnered with 6 entities: Park City, Summit County, University or Utah Valley University, and two ski resorts, Deer Valley and Park City. So as the lead agency, Salt Lake City, we're creating an 80 megawatt solar farm in Tooele County, which will really help supply a huge amount of green energy for the city. And it's kind of exciting because this is one of the initiatives that the mayor's been working on since before she ran for mayor. But just to give you a little perspective, 80 megawatts, there's 1 million watts in 1 megawatt, and this is 80 million megawatts, or 80 megawatts, which will supply enough energy for around 16,000 homes. So it just kind of gives you a perspective of the amount of effort that this is going to supply. Kind of exciting. Another huge initiative, the mayor kicked off the small area master plan for Ballpark neighborhood on Monday. And this was really exciting. This has been in the works for 2 years. A lot of development came and ideas were created and came from surveys and residents participating in the plans for improving the community and the neighborhood. And it includes a library, Festival Street, additional parks and open spaces. I'll put the links in there so you can kind of get an idea of what that entails. There's a 45-day survey period where the community can weigh in and say what they like, what they don't like, what they still like to see and not see. So it's not done yet, but it is kind of exciting because it's been 2 years of work and a lot has been invested and put into that. I know my time is short, but I do have to announce 2 things, and then Landon wanted me to talk about the ACE funding. But the Department of Sustainability is asking for your help, for your support, to please not rake or blow your leaves, branches into the gutters or storm drains. The water, when we get these rainstorms, it quickly can flood our streets and deteriorates our water quality. So if you can help assist with picking up leaves during this time of year, during the fall, you can request up to 2 additional compost containers. And I'll try to get that application put in on the chat so you can link in on that. And our public services is woefully in need of crossing guards. We were operating at a disadvantage in ensuring that our kids have appropriate crossing guards across the board citywide. The salary was at $13. The city council increased it to $15 per hour. We were able to keep up with the demand. We're hoping that that helps as an incentive. But if you'd like to be a crossing guard, you just have to pass a background check. And it's a pretty simple process. ACE, the ACE funding opened Monday, November 1st. So that's an exciting time. It's been revamped a little bit this year. There are 2 tiers. First tier are for signature events from 5,000. You can apply up to between $5,000 and $10,000. The first tier is from $100 to $4,999, and that's for upcoming upcoming and starting events. But this is an exciting program offered through the mayor's office. It's a good way to build culture and arts and technology. They've opened it up a little broader this year. I know because of COVID this last year, it includes mental health and wellness, some online opportunities that you can use the ACE funding for. And of course, like the mayor's primary initiative with the environment as well. So I tried to condense it, Landon, I know.
Thanks,
I can
Tim. Well
answer
done.
And I'll try to answer some questions in the chat and then put those links in there as well.
Thank
If
you.
have Questions for me. And you have my contact information. I understand you've all got access to my email.
You mind putting it in there as well, Tim?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Stephanie, are you ready?
Yeah, ready.
Okay, go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, good. Hi, guys. My name's Steph Blitzacker. I'm a Sugar House resident. We've lived here for over 10 years and just been raising my family, and we live just east of the park. And a year ago, last Christmas, I just had this idea for a Christmas event. I kind of like dreamt it in the night of having a maze that you run through, kind of like a cornstalk maze, like in the fall, but the walls would be Christmas lights. And I thought, like, Googled it and tried to find other, similar ideas and couldn't find it anywhere. And so I just, at the beginning of the year, just went to work and trying to make it happen. And as I did that, I kind of designed a whole Christmas event. And I put in an application to meet with the Sugar House Park Authority back in March. Got to meet with them in June, and they kindly declined the event just because they don't allow payment at the park for any reason. And part of our event will have a Christmas market, like an old school Chris Kindle market. And I wanted to have, hot chocolate and churros and food trucks and stuff. So we went to work. I started working with Ryan Schlegel with the events permit department in the city, and thought Liberty Park would be the second best place to have it. And just got the permit. I actually don't have the actual permit, but I've been told I have the permit. I just have to get them all the stuff. It's a really long process. I've been working with them since June, and it's still not in my hands, but I'm told it will be. I've checked off all the marks. So it'll be a fun event. We have a stage being built where anyone can come perform. So far, we have like 5 different high school choirs signed up to come perform. Peter Breinholt's coming, local, like individual. I have a 15-year-old boy just coming to play Christmas songs on a guitar on the stage, and it's open to anyone. This will be a paid event, so this isn't free to the community, but I wish I could do that. But so we'll have that. We have a tunnel that I had seen at a Christmas event in England. We have this tunnel that's just amazing, and I found a local welder that's just right off of 45th South and 5th West, and he's done all my prototypes and built the whole thing, and it's been a really fun process to kind of come to. So we have almost 5 food trucks there every night, so you can have dinner. Lots of different local artists coming to sell all sorts of things, jewelry and Christmas decor and treats and German pastries and things like that. So yeah, we're excited about it. I just wanted to be involved in the Sugar House. I wanted it to be here to support our commerce and the people that will be coming in for it, but I think Liberty Park is the next best place, and just excited to see. We have no idea what the foot traffic will be, but billboards go up on next Monday. We'll start getting it out on social media now that Halloween is over and people are thinking of Christmas. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Steph, do you mind putting your stuff in the chat so people can see your website?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, we've
Thank
got a
you.
website. We put our tunnel up because it's our first event. We don't have a ton of pictures of it, but we put the tunnel up a week ago just to test it out. And it was awesome. It was really fun. And so I've got pictures of that on our website and just the info. If you want to sign up, we still have spots for vendors at our Christmas market, and we do have a couple food truck openings. So if you know any of your favorites, send them our way. All of our email and contact info. I have 2 gals helping me do this, but besides that, it's kind of just me making this whole thing happen. So
What are the dates?
December 3rd through the 18th.
Okay, and how much is a ticket?
Child ticket is 15 and an adult is 20.
Okay,
There are coupon codes online and through social media to get $2 off per ticket. So
awesome. We're looking forward to going.
thanks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.
All right, Bill. So Bill Knowles is the Salt Lake City liaison. He's here to talk Sugar House construction.
About that sugar house construction. Well, listen, I got a couple of new projects just starting up before the end of the year, but going to be quickly, well, one, I should say, it should be quickly done. And that is the long awaited, for maybe 4 or 5 years anyway, Hawklight project at about 20, some applause in the room, at about 2250 South, just between Kimmy's and the library. There, a lot of you have been watching that, know exactly where it's supposed to go. It's going to start next Monday. And contrary to the discussion about do we want to do it this year or is that going to be a holiday problem, etc., it was unanimous. Let's get the damn thing done. And so we will start next Monday, November 8th, and we should be off the road in terms of the roadway itself before Thanksgiving, before the holiday break, when we like to have a moratorium on all the roads. And there still might be some work going on the side in terms of the signal work itself, but any impact to the roadway will be fairly minimal, and it goes across the street fairly quickly. And I've had some past examples, recent examples downtown. They got it down to a pretty good science by now. So that's going to be starting next Monday, and you'll see it right there on Highland Drive, just barely to the north of that Lowe's project of the Sugar Alley. So that's happening. Another project they've been waiting to start for a long time also is the Sugarmont. Actually, it's called Sugarmont LLC is the only name I've got, but it's at Sugarmont and 900 East. And that, some of you may have noticed, that property began getting scraped clean here just a few days ago, and it's pretty well demoed and scraped off. That project is likely to get underway. It's a 45-unit apartment building that is where there was an old mechanic shop there, just to the south of the Fisher's bike shop. And it's going to be, the project will be lasting for about 1.5 years, about 18 months. It likely is going to be starting within the next 2 weeks. That is the new stuff. The good news is a lot of stuff is cleaning or being cleaned up. 900 East, of course, is in the final stages and getting just the final touches putting on here over the next week or two. And one of our favorite projects, the Sugarmont Apartments, there's let's see how many days we've had for that, about 17, I think. But they have been experiencing now, along with everything, if all the other problems they've had, they're also experiencing some material problems, getting appliances, that kind of stuff, just for that last few the townhouses facing onto McClellan Street there. So where I'd like to say that one is done and should have been done in July and August and September and October. It looks like it could be the end of the year. And contrary, there have been some people speaking about that Sugar Alley project being done before Sugarmont Apartments. And that's not true. I've been assured by the Boulder Ventures people that Sugarmont will be done at least 1.5 weeks before the Lowe's project is done. So rest assured that they're going to get that thing put to bed after 4 years and some odd months. They've kind of been on a record here and they're kind of extending that record every day. But I've been assured that it's probably going to be done by the end of the year. Now, the good news is with that is Sugarmont finally got opened up. So we have Sugarmont westbound open, Simpson open. We've got a lot of open roadway. We have one restriction there at Highland still with the Lowe's project, but enjoy the holidays because everything else is going to be looking pretty clean and open. And we have some new projects coming online next year. So take a breath, enjoy, the openness and drive around and enjoy the free roadways because next year, things are going to get a little testy once again. But I think we'll see that most of these projects that are still going through some final phases will be cleaned up and everything buttoned up here before the holidays. As I said, we got plenty of new stuff coming down the road back in the spring with some infrastructure projects. But the Snowgrove property, the Altaterra projects, also those two big projects will be starting up this spring. Finally gotten through, at least Snowgrove has gotten through all the hoops. They'll be starting up in early spring. The Altaterra project, which is that one next to Fairmont Park, also set to be starting up this spring. All of that stuff is demoed and ready to go. They're just going through some final development, actually design plans. Snowgrove, as I said, is pretty much all set and teed up and ready to go. That's all I know for right now, Landon.
21st South, Bill, 21st and 20.
Oh, yes,
Your favorite project.
My favorite, guys. I should have mentioned that. Thank you. I had a note there and I missed it. Those of you that live up there, Landon, might have your power shut off tomorrow. There will be some power shut off there starting, I think, at about 8 a.m. running into the afternoon as there's a big power pole right there that they're doing some work around and have to shut it off. Rocky Mountain Power has informed the folks along that stretch. But I was going to say that we've had some startup problems with that project. And so, yeah, I can't describe it well, can I? But we have gotten things, I feel confident now that we've gotten their attention. We've met with the owner of the project. Thank you, Landon, for that. That's been helpful. And the contractor is coming around into working in the big city and doing some things that we need to have work with. So he's finally catching on. So I'm cautiously optimistic that project is going to go smoother. He's addressed the pedestrian access issue we had along the sidewalk there. He's taking care of the access into the Dilworth school. It's looking a lot better. 2 or 3 and 4 months ago, we were having some real heartburn on that deal. And I think we're getting control of it, kind of knock on wood with that. But that's now about all I know.
Thanks, Bill. If there's any questions in the chat, you mind typing a little?
I'm gonna just say that to anybody has any questions, you either put it in the chat or give me a call. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Bill. Do you mind putting your contact info in there?
Right now.
Email? All right, thanks. All right, Leah, are you ready? Okay, Leah.
Yep. You unmuted me as I tried to unmute myself, which
Sorry.
didn't inverse. Sorry about that.
I'm gonna unmute Lynn Jacobs as well.
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah. My name's Leah Jaramillo. I'm the communication manager for a couple of Salt Lake City projects. One of them is the new Highland Drive reconstruction. I came and spoke last month. If you weren't here, I just want to give a quick overview of that project that's advancing in design. I will drop the link in the chat. I don't know if you, Landon, if you want me to share my screen.
Brandon will let you.
That would be great.
You should have just gotten the
Excellent, thank you. So our project is designed to reconstruct Highland Drive and 1100 East. So this is from I-80 up to probably just south of 1700 South or in that vicinity. The goal is to use the Funding Our Future bond money to replace the aging infrastructure and provide a safe, inviting, sustainable, and comfortable set of travel choices for all road users. So that's cars, pedestrians, bikes, and other folks in the business district as well. I'll put our link in the chat, but we have a couple of different concepts. They vary based on where you are in the corridor from I-80 to 21st South. It's kind of already striped this way on the roadway, but we are looking at adding a wider multi-use path on the west side and some sort of on-street bike lane on the east side as well. As you get north of 21st South to Ramona, in the sort of that northern core of the business district there, we're really trying to narrow down the roadway to 2 lanes in each direction and slow traffic down, make it a really comfortable place for patrons of the businesses to walk or bike or sit and enjoy the great street trees and businesses in that area. And then in the residential area from Ramona to Wilson, kind of back to what they have before, but again, with a wider multi-use path. And then all the way up Wilson to Logan is kind of similar, although we go back more to just the regular 6-foot sidewalks on each side. None of the sidewalks out there now, I don't believe any of the sidewalks out there now are at that full 6-foot width. So we do want to get public feedback on this idea and the concepts. We met with businesses and property owners on Highland Drive in September, and we'll be hosting a broader public meeting for anyone who's interested, but we'll be targeting residents in that northern section especially to come. That may be at the end of November or early December. We're trying to make sure that all of our designs are ready. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, so we haven't picked a date quite yet. So in the interim, I will drop the link to this website in the chat. You can kind of see there's several tabs at the top that kind of explain what we've been looking at, where this concept came from inside the local link study, some of the data that we have. And then you can feel free to email us or give us a call and share your thoughts in advance of that public open house. We'll also make sure that Landon has the information for the open house and it goes out in the newsletter. It'll be posted on social media and in our email updates. So you're welcome to subscribe or find out more information there. I'll put all of that in the chat. The only other thing I wanted to add was that we did hear we had some questions about the parking study that we did. And so we will be looking at weekend traffic as well. And so I know from a few folks, they had some questions about parking in the area. In order to make some of those concepts fit, we are looking at reorganizing the parking on the northern section there from 21st South to Ramona. So we would move all of the parking to the east side of the roadway in order to make space for all of those facilities. And so before we do that, people had asked some questions about parking, so we do want to answer those. Lynn, did you want to add anything?
Nope. That was great, Leah. Thanks for the overview. I think I'll just pay attention if there's questions, put them in the chat window, or I will also put my email address in there too. If you have questions about that project or the other ones that we're going to be talking about tonight, I'd be more than happy to help answer those questions. And then I think Leah, also you wanted to talk about our 21st South project, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yours or public utilities?
Your project. I'm not ready to talk about my project yet. That day will come, but it's not tonight.
As poor Sugar House, I am also a Sugar House resident, and I will tell you, we are getting a lot of improvements, which are great, but it's going to be difficult. I'm also working as the community communications lead for public utilities on the 21st South utility capacity project, which will replace the sewer from McClelland, so just west of Highland Drive, all the way up to Yuma Street, which is almost 21st East. That is planned for next summer. The sewer ranges in depth from between 12 and 16 feet underneath the travel lanes of 21st South. So it is a big It's going to be a big impact to traffic. I will put some information and the website in the link in the chat as well. But we held a public meeting last week and we did get to talk to quite a few residents about the project. We are taking different approaches east of Highland Drive to try to manage traffic and impacts where we're not working at night in the residential area. And then on the west side, we're looking at doing something called pipe bursting, which has less of an above ground impact, to try to keep all of those driveway accesses open in the business district. But that it is going to be a big impactful project. It will take the majority of the construction season. So likely starting in April or May and going all the way through the end of the year. That job is intended to precede any future roadway work. So the future reconstruction of the actual road on 2100 South is in the future around 2024.
2025.
2025
Yep.
for construction there. That's also based on funding. So the infrastructure work has to be done. It's both, like I said, the sewer, the whole run, and then water line east of 13th East. Both of those lines range in age from 70 to 100 years old and are also undersized for the immediate needs that are existing now. So the sewer line is not large enough to manage the 4,000 or so homes that are currently utilizing that service line. And then the water line is sufficient. It's old, but it also it's not able to generate the kind of fire flows that we'd like to see. So those are the two projects. I will drop those in the chat, and there's websites you can find more information, or emails, both of which end up to me. So you can feel free to ask questions that way as well.
Hey, thank you for always keeping us engaged.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Landon, I think we also need to talk about our S-line update if you want
Yeah,
to
go ahead, Lynn.
now. Okay, so Amalia Andrews is representing UTA. She's also on the call. So I don't know if Amalia, if you're unmuted or not. And then I don't think I saw Janelle Robertson in the list of participants. She is our UTA project manager. Has been just wonderful to work with on this project. So Amalia, if you're there, and then Amalia is going to need to share her screen as well so that we can kind of roll through that presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've got lots happening. Wait for that screen to come up.
You got it, Brandon.
Sorry, who is it?
Amalia.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's
you're
okay.
good.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's Amalia. So I'll go ahead and just kind of introduce this. This is our S-Line extension project, which we're incredibly excited about. For those of you who know or maybe don't know, the state legislature was gracious enough to see the need to extend the terminus of the S-Line kind of from the back door of Sugar House into more of the heart of the neighborhood. And so they awarded UTA $12 million to help us accomplish that goal. And we'll get into the kind of the budget a little bit later in this presentation. Amalia, do you want to cover kind of this project purpose and maybe benefits and considerations tab, and then I'll take it from there?
Sure thing. So the purpose of the project is really to increase the service and bring more value to the community, providing access to and supporting the heart of the Sugar House Business District, boosting the visibility of the streetcar, and also further enhance ridership. Some of the benefits include improving choices for travel, increasing access and mobility, and really making the way for future improvements. We all know there's a lot of development going on in the area. UTA and Salt Lake City are working very closely together to minimize the impact to the community when construction begins on this extension in future years.
So these are the two options that we're currently considering for this extension. Option 1A, which runs from the current end of line. And essentially, these are just kind of planning level lines. I'll describe it a little bit better in detail than what the map is showing. But the alignment would run,
so we can see it a little bigger.
Yeah. Option 1A, the alignment would run on the north side of Simpson Avenue out of that station, and it would just be in its own guideway. It'd be in its own, rail line. traffic would still be separate from the S line. And then it would come up and kind of go around the curve. And then we'd have a new station right next to the old DI building that is now RDA property. And then we'd want to incorporate some sort of transit plaza as part of the redevelopment of that DI parcel when it redevelops. So, you know, it kind of gets us from that back door and it gets us up to Highland Drive and gets it more visible and closer to where people actually want to be. And we're hoping that that really helps. So this is the one option we've got. The second option, if you want to go to the next slide, is to actually get it across Highland Drive and into the what we lovingly refer to as the Shopko block, even though Shopko hasn't been there for years, and drop it right in that parking lot, kind of right at the front door of the movie theater. We really like this option. It does have a lot of complications to it, but you know, it's an option that we definitely are continuing to evaluate and explore. This would require some right-of-way and land acquisition from the property owner on that parcel. And so we're kind of working through that and trying to figure out how we can make that work. And so these are kind of the two options that are out there. If you want to hop to the next slide, Amalia, we can talk a little bit about where we're at for funding. So as I mentioned earlier, we got $12 million from the Utah State Legislature to build this. Unfortunately, both of these options actually end up being a little bit more than the $12 million that we have. Everything is just getting more and more expensive by the day. So right now our option 1A is kind of in that $14 million range, and option 1B is more in the $18 million range. We are working really hard to try to refine those numbers back down to that $12 million range so that we can get it within budget. The biggest reason for our cost increase was that as we looked at extending the end of the S line further into the heart of Sugar House, it actually gets more difficult for UTA to operate it and keep it on 15-minute headways like it currently operates. And we think that's really important. We want to keep that happening. But in order to do that, we'll actually have to extend that section of double track that is kind of there. Right now, there's a little piece of double track right around 5th East. We'll probably have to extend that over to about 650 or 7th East to do that. And so that big cost increase you see, like that $18 million number, that's because of the need to increase that and add that double tracking section that we don't currently have. And so we're kind of trying to sharpen our pencils and get to the point where maybe we don't need to do that double track, but right now that's what we think it'll take to get this done. And so obviously we're a little bit over budget and we need to work through that. So this is kind of our schedule. Right now, UTA is working on updating the environmental analysis. For those of you who remember, we did an environmental analysis a few years ago when we were looking to take it north and go to the plaza. We know that $12 million will not get us that far. And so we're kind of going back and revisiting and kind of clearing this new footprint. So that's what UTA is working on right now. That will take us into early 2022. So sometime early next year, we'll finish up that environmental analysis. They'll start design and then get us to, that gets us, you know, we're going to do it really fast as physically possible to do, with the goal of getting construction done in 2023 at the same time as our Highland Drive project is under construction. We really hope that we can accomplish the schedule so that we don't impact the community twice. We really want to just come in here, get Highland Drive done, get the S line done, and get out of there. So that's the schedule that we're looking to try to meet now. It is an incredibly aggressive schedule, and it's going to be a real challenge to get everything done on that timeline, but we are working as hard as we can to make it happen.
We are. So, you know, it's our goal to, you know, keep everybody informed, and that's why we're here today. And we're going to continue, you know, updating the council as well as other stakeholders in the area. We want to really improve active transportation connections and create a useful area for everyone. There's some upcoming opportunities for you to continue staying informed about the project. We're looking at presenting to the Salt Lake City Council in December, and then also UTA board sometime in early 2022. We're thinking possibly February. So we'll be more specific about those dates when we have those set in stone. Just want to remind everyone how to engage with us. We have an email address, a phone line, and then this is the project website. And I'll also place that information into the chat. And, you know, we're here to connect with you. Happy to talk with anyone offline. and looking forward to coming back to the council again soon as we have some updated information to share.
Yeah. Amelie, I noticed there's several questions about why we're not looking at going up Sugarmont anymore. So I think I saw that from at least three people. So I think we'll go ahead and answer that right now rather than have to put it in the chat. If you want to roll back up to that kind of map, the real reason we don't want to go up Sugarmont anymore, there's kind of two reasons. One is that it would get our new station about 400 or 500 feet from the existing station, which we think is just not a good use of $12 million to get it such a short distance. The second reason is at some point we either need to cross Highland or go north or south on Highland, depending on where we go from here. And in order to do that, we really need to have that transition happen at a traffic signal. Sugarmont is just too darn close to Wilmington and Simpson to add another traffic signal in the middle of all that. And so we've just kind of realized that Sugarmont's not a great next step for us for those two reasons. And that's what pushed us to say, well, let's bend it and go down Simpson instead, because that gets us to a little bit further away. I mean, it's not a lot further away if we go to the DI property, but at least it's something. And then the flip side of that is it gets us to a signal, which really gives us a lot of flexibility in the future for what we do. So I'm happy to talk about that with anyone further offline as well. So great. I see there's lots more questions in the chat. I guess we'll probably just answer them in the chat.
Yeah, thanks,
that works for
Lynn.
you, Landon.
That would be awesome if you could. Yeah, thank you. All right, thanks for coming. Thanks for keeping us engaged.
Thank you.
All right, Benny, go ahead.
Oh, hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. It's the last call for ballots. Go ahead and send them to me. I'll need about 15 minutes to tally them up. I've received a lot, but I feel like still missing five or so. So go ahead and send them. I put my email in the chat. You should also have it in your inbox. And if you can't get me a ballot, you're welcome to just text me who you're voting for. It's unorthodox, but we are in unorthodox times. So 15 minutes. Give me a few minutes to count them up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next we have Ben Colander. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself and I'll find Lorna?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks,
Okay.
Landon. Ben Colander here, Director of Economic Development for Salt Lake City, here to talk about a really exciting thing that's been going on in the Sugar House for a while, or at least there's been interest in Sugar House for a while, and that is the special assessment area for economic promotion. So we have an update here from Economic Development. Just really quick before we provide the update, SAA special assessment areas, sometimes these updates can put people to sleep because they're really technical tools used for economic development. But this one is the tool itself is a tool that is, hey Tim, good to see you too. The tool itself for the special assessment area is used as a tax rate increase for property owners. And the revenue received from that is used for economic promotion. So some of you may be aware of the Downtown Alliance. This is a tool that funds the Downtown Alliance in the downtown area. And we're looking to do a similar initiative in the Sugar House area. So this came at the request of the property owners, and Landon's been involved with that and engaged with us as well. So thanks for your support on that. The update that we have is that the department has met with both council and the administration on a budget request to do some initial studying of the area. So it's the first step to initiate the process of what will ultimately hopefully result in a special assessment area. So we've met with Council Chair Fowler, who I also have to say thank you for your time and attention on this. And the update is that there's actually a budget work session item as a part of Budget Amendment 4, which is scheduled for the November 9th meeting. So stay tuned. We should know more here in the coming couple of weeks, because there is a formal meeting after that to formally approve Budget Amendment 4. But as of now, this is a suggested item in the administrative recommended budget items for council. So, and just at a high level, and to set expectations on next steps and what that looks like, it does take a little bit of time for these special assessment areas to go through. The initial funding is for some consulting and legal fees on drawing boundaries, understanding the technicals behind the tools and what the potential is before presenting that back. So we'll be engaged with this group during that process. And it takes about a year in total. It may take a couple months longer for this one, just to build in some buffer, because when these tools are initially used in an area, there's a lot of discussion about how this should be shaped and what sort of budget parameters should be in place. So expect that timeline once the funding's in place, just to run that process. So the other thing I just wanted to raise is that as we talk about special assessment areas, one policy consideration that is always raised or thought about is maintenance. And that's also why we have my colleague in the City over Public Services, Lorna, here with us as well. There are, Sugar House is one of a very few areas that has enhanced maintenance. And so as we look at these economic promotion assessment areas, that topic does come up quite a bit of how to balance any enhancements with the economic promotion initiatives that take place and what the greater cost may be on the wider city. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions in the chat, and I see my colleague Lorna here as well.
She should be unmuted, Ben, I think. Oh, no, she's not.
Well, Lorna, are you there?
Go ahead, Lorna.
Hi, this is Lorna Vogt, Public Services. Thanks, Ben. We're here to do the enhanced maintenance, as Ben mentioned. I think you're all aware of those services that we provide. If anybody would like a rundown of those, I'm happy to give that. And then what we'll be doing is watching the assessment process that Ben just described move through, and there'll be determinations of if there's going to be additional services that need to be provided in the area, and how we would do those. I saw something come in the chat about maintenance lingo. Is that a question about what does that mean when we talk about maintenance, enhanced maintenance? Okay. So enhanced maintenance is when the city is doing services throughout the city. We do basic in between the curbs, basically, right-of-way work. But in the downtown business district, the central business district, we have enhanced maintenance, which we provide the garbage cans. We do that in Sugar House as well. There's additional lighting, there's additional landscaping, holiday stuff. There's plaza areas. So those are provided in the Sugar House area as well. We take care of the S line, the plaza there, the splash pad, Monument Plaza is what I'm talking about. And then we do extra snow plowing on the curbs, garbage removal, irrigation, all those other things that we don't typically do throughout the city. So those are the enhanced services. Our folks are stationed right there by the old DI, in between the old DI building and the old fire station. And they have a facility there, and that's where they work from.
Hey, Lorna, did you find a place for that facility?
We're looking for donations right now. About 2 acres of land right in the heart of Sugar House. I'm sure that's going to be easy to find. No, we're working with Danny and the RDA on development timing for that property and where we'll need to be located. Obviously, we'd love to combine with the Public Lands Department and do something with Fairmont Park. I think it's a benefit to the community to have a municipal facility in the neighborhood. It gives that constant presence of the city, and I think it actually enhances security and just a connection for the city. And we would love to co-locate other services there, like parking enforcement. As parking changes come to Sugar House, what can we do to help keep traffic moving, especially in the business area? But no, the answer is no, Landon. We have not found a spot yet.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for coming. Thanks for giving us the update.
Thank you.
And there might be a couple of questions at the chat if you don't mind typing.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, Brandon, do you see Allison?
Yeah, if you could unmute Courtney Hamer as well.
Sure.
And then if I could get screen sharing capabilities, that would be great.
Sorry I missed you guys.
Oh, you're good. Let me share my screen. Can everybody see that? Can I get a confirmation? Great. Well, yes, so we are here tonight to give a little update on the East-West Waterline project that has been going on since early this year. And Courtney is gonna go through that for us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Hamer. I'm the project manager for the East-West Waterline. We've been here before, and we're back to just give a quick update on where we are in the project. Allison Adams is part of our public involvement team. We've got Brad Stewart here also from Public Utilities. And our contractor is VanCon. So this is an overview of the whole map of the project. We're putting in a new 48-inch diameter water line. It starts over in Mill Creek, just right by REI, like 33rd South, 35th East. It runs along the purple line through Mill Creek into Salt Lake City. Phase 2 is what we're here to talk about tonight, the blue line. And then it keeps going and ends at about 17th South and 3rd East. So just overall, the major benefits to Salt Lake City and Mill Creek residents include supplementing wells in the Sugar House area, providing another reliable source of water, redundancy, it adds redundancy and resiliency into the system. So you can go to the next slide, thanks. So hopefully this map is somewhat familiar. Phase 2 is what we have been working on and are resuming construction on this week. We have completed the 900 East and Ashton Ave portion. So on the west side of the blue line, that's complete. And we've also completed the east side of the blue line through the Wood Hollow condos and on Warnock Ave for a little bit. So both ends of the blue line phase 2 are completed. And we're resuming the Forestdale Golf Course section, so the middle part of the blue line right now. That's going to go from November 2021 to May of 2022. Let's see. So again, crews are starting this week to install the water line. If any of you have been on the golf course this week, you'll notice there's active construction happening along the north and east sides of the golf course. It's all fenced off and we've got signage there to just encourage golfers to not get into the construction area. And again, with the finishing this phase in May 22, we'll complete the overall phase 2 of this construction project. So we've just got our contact info. We've got a website, and if you have questions, there's a phone number and an email that you can send any questions to. We'll put this in the chat too, just in case you miss it. And that's all we've got tonight.
Yep. If anyone has any questions, we'll stay on for a little bit to answer any questions in the chat.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you
for having us.
All right, Benny, go ahead and then we'll get to Soren.
Oh yeah, you ready?
I'm ready.
I've been counting.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
So ready. The results are in. Landon Clark will be our chair again. Big surprise. Yay. Judy Short will be our first vice chair. Willa Coker will be our second vice chair, and Sally will be our third vice chair. And Mike's going to still be our treasurer, and we do not have a secretary. Nobody volunteered. So if anybody wants to volunteer, contact Landon. That's
We'll
it.
figure
That's all I
that out.
have.
All right, thank you, Benny.
Thank you.
Okay, Soren, are you ready? So Soren's here. We've been getting a lot of emails that all the construction in Sugar House is our fault. So we thought it would be a good chance to come in and talk about the Sugar House master plan that's been around for, I saw Gene Davis is on here. He was one of the originals. So Soren's, maybe Judy might know as much, but Soren knows his stuff. So he's here to talk about it. So go ahead, Soren.
Do you mind if I share my screen, Landon?
No, go ahead, Brandon.
Okay, give me just a second to pull it up here.
You need a couple minutes, Soren. I'll have Maggie give a little update. Want me to do that?
I'm on a new computer, and it's my computer's not letting me share my screen. So yeah, give me just a minute.
Okay, I'm
to
gonna
figure that out.
have Maggie talk for just a sec.
Okay,
Maggie,
perfect.
Maggie, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. I just want to make a quick announcement about the Sugar House or the Arts and Culture Committee. My term with the Sugar House Community Council is up in March, and I'm the chair of that committee. And it'd be so wonderful to have someone take that position over. So if we're still recruiting trustees, I would love it if we kept in mind bringing someone on who has some experience or interest in the arts and culture of the community. And if anyone's interested, we have a meeting on Monday at 7 o'clock. I'll put my email in the chat and you can email me. I also want to say that we wrote a lot of grants and did a lot of projects since I've taken on this position, and it doesn't have to continue that way. We were pretty ambitious, our committee. So I hope that doesn't intimidate or deter anyone from accepting or taking on that position. So yeah, please join us on Monday. And please, if you know anyone in the community that is passionate about arts and culture in Sugar House and might be interested in joining the council, then let's recruit some people. Other than that, I think that's all I have. Yep. Thank you. I'm curious, why do we have 3 vice chairs? I'm just out of curiosity. Like, I've never seen that before.
I don't know. It's always been that way. Gene, can you answer that question? Oh, he can't. I don't know. Something's wrong with Gene. Something's wrong with your speaker.
When I joined the council in 19, it was already and when we wrote the bylaws, I believe in the late 80s, early 90s, it was left in there. No need to do away with it. The one thing is the more people you have in leadership, as you know, Landon, the better you can conduct the business, because everybody has a piece of the action to kind of pull things together with you.
Cool. Thanks for that explanation, Gene.
I hope that's understandable.
Thanks.
I did that on the fly because I have no minutes.
I was just simply curious. Thank you for answering that.
This is Senator Gene Davis. Gene, you want a couple minutes while Soren gets his stuff going?
You know, the interesting thing is this last week, Monday, we had a meeting and the Redistricting Commission presented their maps, 3 maps. And it was quite interesting in the redistricting way of looking from their 3 maps. Really changes an awful lot throughout the entire state. And of course, our population has grown in the state of Utah as well. The interesting thing is the commission itself did not recommend one of their 3 maps. They couldn't get consensus to offer those maps. So the committee, which is the constitutional committee that puts together the new redistricting areas, will be meeting on Monday. And of course, the public is invited to be a part of those meetings. We'll have public discussion. And then next week we'll meet in special session and we'll put those districts together. So what in our district, Senate districts at least, we have 2 senators in Sugar House. We have myself and of course Janie Yamamoto. So it'd be interesting to see whether we remain in Sugar House, even though I live in Sugar House. We'll see if we remain intact or not. So it's going to be an interesting outcome. And I'm open to any questions that anybody may have on all of that.
A minute. Senator Yamamoto, you want to talk as well? Uh-oh, we're having trouble with her phone. We'll come back. Oh, there we go.
I'm on.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I tried for an hour to get in. It must think I'm goofy, but it must be my phone. So yeah, I was looking at the independent redistricting maps, and it made me sad because I will lose under 2 of the maps, Salt Lake City and Sugar House and all of Salt Lake City. And I would be representing Park City and all over the place. So Big Cottonwood Canyon. But anyway, we'll just see what happens next week. And then I did have a newsletter. I don't want to take up too much time. I have a newsletter and it has gone through, I've gone through kind of the bills some of the bills that I'm working on, and 3 went through, I went through on October interim, but I don't want to take time right now. And I just wanted to say too, I was telling Landon that Devin Cantwell's getting married this week. Keep in touch with her. And so that's, something fun, but yeah, just been very busy. We've, it's really more like a full-time job. It always has been, but I love representing Sugar House, and thanks for everything. And if you don't have my newsletter, please let me know, because I tried to summarize everything before this meeting, and have a number of bills on water issues, conservation, just a little update on water banking that I did for 2 years. And we started our first water bank, which is really exciting. And Salt Lake City just informed me that they are going to use some of their effluent water from the sewage and use that through water banking to shepherd it into the Great Salt Lake. So I'm excited about that too. And we're going to talk more about that. Got one police reform bill that I've worked with Chief Brown on, and other sheriffs on. The speeding and everything is, it has to do with speeding over 100 miles per hour and racing
I'm in
cars.
a meeting. I'm just getting ready to present.
How long are you gonna be on? And car racing, and that Chief Brown said it's been just a really significant problem, especially in Salt Lake City, where they meet to car race, but a lot of things go on with drugs and things like that too. So I'll just keep you posted on those. And by the next December meeting, I'm going to call in very, very early and get on my laptop instead of my phone and hopefully be able to see you. I wish we could meet in person. I would be there for sure. And I miss all of you. So anyway, I'll keep you posted, but please feel free to call me anytime. And I'm hoping Jean and I, or whoever's in our seat or not, aren't lumped together. But anyway, thank you so much.
Can you put how people can get your newsletter in the chat? Can you do that from your phone?
Let me try. I'll just put my email. Just call. You can text me or call me or whatever. I'll put that in.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Landon. Congratulations.
All right, Soren.
All right, I'm good to go when I can share my screen, I think. There we go. Okay, can you see that okay?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for the invitation, Landon, to come and share a little bit about planning, community planning in Sugar House. This is going to be a little bit of a whirlwind, and I'm going to go back to kind of the beginning of Salt Lake and how Sugar House came to be, how the community is planned, and how to be engaged both in the planning efforts and the implementation. Many of you are familiar with the Sugar House Master Plan adopted in 2005. This is a portion of the cover of that document. And just to go back in history a little bit, this is the plat of Salt Lake City from roughly 1847, when the Mormon pioneer settlers came to the valley. And this was a similar plan that was used to settle about 750 communities around the Western US and into Canada and Mexico. So it's a pretty common plan as a settlement, kind of a pioneer settlement era. Of course, there were people here long before we planned cities like this. Indigenous histories go back several thousand years, and many of them were quite sophisticated as well. But generally, we think of Salt Lake City planning history beginning when the pioneers settled and we begin to lay out streets using this kind of a scenario. Just to kind of give you a frame of reference, the original plan of Salt Lake ran from the Jordan River, pictured here on the bottom right, to roughly 1300 east, which is about the edge of the University of Utah. And from the foothills to the north around Ensign Peak, that outcropping kind of in the middle left of the screen is where the state capitol is today. You can see the Tabernacle and the Salt Lake Temple downtown, kind of right in the middle of the screen. And way off on the horizon, around where Mount Olympus is, you can see a little train and some factories. That is Parley's Canyon. So at one point in time, Sugar House really was just barely a blip. It's actually quite a ways from downtown Salt Lake. I think it's about 6 miles as the crow flies. A little bit of the history of major planning in Salt Lake City. These are some of the major initiatives, and some of which included Sugar House. 1847, the plat of Salt Lake City that I mentioned. The first development in Sugar House really of any substance was the Forest Dale subdivision, which was platted in 1890 and built over a period of about 20 years. In 1902, the town of Forest Dale was incorporated. This town ran roughly from 7th to 9th east and from 21st south down to roughly where I-80 is today. Highland Park came a few years after that, the Highland Park subdivision, which included about 900 acres, the largest portion of which was Highland Park. In 1910, it was subdivided and platted. This was the first subdivision in Salt Lake City south of Parley's Creek. So it was kind of a unique area that was just beginning to develop at the turn of the last century. Forest Dale disincorporated and was absorbed into Salt Lake City in 1912. From 1900 to 1920, we've been talking a lot about roads and utilities and infrastructure today. The first paved roads and underground infrastructure was developed in the first 2 decades of the 1900s. Really, a lot of the transportation system was focused around streetcars. So while we're talking about extending the streetcar a few blocks, believe it or not, we had at one time 146 miles of streetcar in Salt Lake City alone, 165 streetcars. At 1918, which was kind of the peak of the streetcar era, there were over 38 million passengers riding the streetcar that year. The first citywide plan, other than the original plat, was developed in 1919 by George Kessler. In 1927 was the first zoning ordinance. This was part of a movement that happened. I think the very first zoning ordinance in the US was around 1920 or 1921. And it slowly moved across the US through some enabling legislation. So Salt Lake City has its first zoning ordinance in 1927. And from the 1940s to 1960s is when most of the Sugar House neighborhoods, kind of the suburbs, developed. This is a map from Plan Salt Lake that shows some of these major planning eras in Salt Lake City. So you see the blue, kind of the downtown, south, the central city, and east downtown. That was part of that original plat. The green colors, the light green, were kind of those early suburbs, which included Forest Dale. You can see that green kind of at the west end of Sugar House. Then the lighter green, which is what was called the Big Fields Annex. This used to be the farming. All of the farms for the original settlers of Salt Lake City had their farms kind of at the perimeter of town. And eventually those farms were platted and developed. And then you can see the yellow and the orange and the red were some of the later, more recent subdivisions up through the 1980s. There are, in addition to those original plans, there are currently a number of citywide plans, all of which encompass, but not only Sugar House, but all other portions of the city as well. This includes the 1990 urban design element, the 1992 Salt Lake City Open Space Master Plan. You might be interested in knowing, some of you have maybe even participated in this. Salt Lake City is currently going through kind of a re-envisioning and a remaster planning of open space citywide, which is pretty cool. There's a 1996 Transportation Master Plan and more recent transit and bicycle and pedestrian plans, which were part of the original transportation plan, but those have been updated and become kind of standalone. 2012 was the adoption of a citywide community historic preservation plan. And then in 2015, the first kind of citywide plan and vision since the one in the 1940s, which kind of gives some comprehensive goals and policies for the city around which all of these neighborhood and community plans are kind of built. So this is just some cover images from Plan Salt Lake, kind of bringing Salt Lake City into its second century. The Salt Lake City Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, which was adopted now about 6 years ago in 2015. These are some of the images from the national and local historic districts. Interestingly, there are no local historic districts in the Sugar House area. You can see the map on the right. The green are national districts. The kind of orange or yellow color are local districts, which are mostly in the central city and the avenues and around the university. And then all of the red dots are individually listed National Register historic sites. There are some in Sugar House that have actually been lost since this map was completed. We've lost a number of structures to more recent development, even buildings that remain standing, like the old Redmond moving and storage building, which was converted into condominiums on 21st South around 12th East, was delisted from the National Register because of the alterations made to it. So the green, the National Register districts, they're yellow on the left, they're green on the right. These are basically incentive-based programs. They're administered through the federal National Park Service, and they basically give incentives for people to preserve historic buildings and structures and districts by creating tax credit programs. So when you make renovations on historic buildings, you can get a tax credit. Some people have taken advantage of those. I see, Gene, you've got a question maybe about this map. I think Gene's muted. I don't know if we can answer questions.
We'll let Gene, let me find it.
Okay.
You can keep talking, Soren, and I'll find him.
I'll keep going. The gray
right,
or kind of blue areas on the left are more restrictive local historic districts, which actually codify preservation as a policy and make it very difficult to demolish or alter historic structures. Gene, you had a question. I don't know if it was about this or a couple of slides back.
It was a question of one of the historical areas was the Kimball Richards area, which was the streetcar area on Highland Drive. That's by the power station on Highland Drive. That area has been suggested over the years by this community council to become a historical district, but we've never done the formal outlay of it or preservation of it.
A portion of that is included in the Highland Park Historic District. You can see there on the map on the left, Highland Park at the bottom. 13th East is that kind of whitish line that goes through the middle. So both the east and west side of 13th East are captured in that. So part of that area is in a National Register district. None of it is in a local historic district. So it's not really protected historic structures, but it does have that incentive program to try and incentivize people to do sensitive restoration work. Kind of moving now from citywide plans into community plans. These are the 9 community planning districts across the city. You can see Sugar House there is one of the smallest planning districts in the city. Each of these community master plans, this initiative really started in the 1970s through a federally funded community improvement program. And then in the 1980s, the city really began developing many of these community master plans. So 1985 is when the first Sugar House master plan was adopted. Although Sugar House was referenced in the 1943 citywide plan, this is really the first kind of community-based plan that was created in 85. In 1995, there was a Sugar House Business District master plan that was augmented. I think that involved specifically the creation of the redevelopment project area that created that Shopco shopping center. Interestingly, most of that shopping center was at one time neighborhoods and homes, and it was planned to become kind of a suburban shopping center, and now it's moving away from the suburban shopping center into more of kind of an urban neighborhood district. 1995 was also the year for kind of a modernization and update of the entire city's zoning. So when a lot of people wonder, why do we have all of this density and development happening in Sugar House, that came about because of that district master plan and the citywide zoning plan or citywide zoning update of 1995. So that was really almost 3 decades ago that a lot of that kind of groundwork was laid for what we're seeing today. But it took some catalysts to kind of get to the next level. And part of it was the finances of development that kind of had its shelf life of about 25 to 30 years. And now we're seeing some of those older strip shopping and kind of single-use commercial zones kind of making way for more infill development that we're seeing today. The Sugar House Master Plan was updated in 2001 and then expanded and updated in 2005 to include more urban design elements. That's the master plan that we use now today. There are also a couple of related master plans. The Central Community Master Plan from 2005 is kind of the west edge and kind of northern boundary of part of Sugar House. And the East Bench Master Plan, which was updated in 2017, which encompasses some of the eastern parts of the Sugar House community. So these are a couple of images. The left is a Sugar House Master Plan from 2005. On the right is the kind of the circulation streetscape plan from 2013. So in addition to that community master plan, we also have a number of sub-area plans. This includes the 1998 Highland Park National Historic District, which I mentioned a few minutes ago. In 2002, largely as a result of the 2001 Sugar House Master Plan, there was an effort to create a Westminster small area plan around Westminster College and some of the historic neighborhoods around the college. This plan was unfortunately never adopted when it was completed. I don't know all of the circumstances behind that, but part of it was that Westminster at one point in time was acquiring properties to expand, and they kind of discontinued purchasing homes and made a decision as an institution to rather expand into the business district, which we've seen several projects in recent years. So maybe some of the impetus for that small area plan went away, but that may be still something we want to dust off the shelf. It's still part of the preservation plan and neighborhood kind of community and neighborhood preservation plan for Sugar House to have that Westminster small area plan and the potential creation of additional historic districts to bring some of those incentives into bear. In 2009, the Forest Dale National Historic District was created. In 2013, sorry, my lines are running together. That's Circulation and Streetscape Amenities Plan was adopted. In 2017, the 21st and 21st Neighborhood Plan was adopted, largely in response to some of the redevelopment that we're seeing right now in the 21st District, which is under construction right now, to kind of get input from the community about what that should look like. And then also that same year, later in the year, the Parties Way Corridor Plan, which is kind of the boundary between the East Bench and Sugar House master plans, which mostly focuses on transportation enhancements and improvements to make Parties Way not so much a freeway corridor, which it kind of as, but to try and soften and reduce some of the traffic speed and impacts of a lot of people coming on and off Foothill and the interstate system. So that's kind of a comprehensive overview of planning and how we got to where we are with our current master plans. The 2005 Sugar House Master Plan, I won't go into detail on any of these really, but these are the roughly dozen or so sections of the master plan. They're worth getting to know, because a lot of the things that we're seeing happen today came about because of policies and plans that were adopted as part of this master plan. It has a residential section that includes both preserving communities, some of the historic preservation elements, as well as looking at how we incrementally respond to the needs for population growth in the city with infill development. Things like the accessory dwelling unit is specifically identified in here as something that would help address some of the growing housing needs and diversity in housing. There's a commercial land use section, which primarily focuses on the Sugar House Business District, but also some of the smaller commercial nodes and districts around the community area. There's a Parks and Open Space Plan, which adds specificity to the citywide parks master plan. There's a mobility access and pedestrian experience, which really, this is the policy that has driven a lot of the transportation decisions that have been made, things like expanding streetcar and mobility, things like adding walkability and making streets safer for pedestrians and bicyclists. A lot of that comes out of this mobility access pedestrian section. The urban design element was one of those elements that was added as part of the later plan in 2005 to help identify ways that the form of the city can support some of these other goals. Having entrances that front streets rather than turn towards parking lots and things like that. You can really see the difference of these policies from the Shopco, the big shopping center, which is really oriented in a very suburban way around parking lots, and the more recent development that's happening in Sugar House, which is much more walkable and pedestrian friendly, oriented towards all kinds of mobility from transit and pedestrian to bicycle and automobiles in a very different way. So you can really see how these policies have shaped a lot of changes in Sugar House. There's a historic preservation section, that calls for things like the Westminster Plan and some of the creation of historic districts, some of which has come about, like the Forest Dale Historic District, others of which are still on the drawing boards. There's a public facilities section, which addresses things like the recent expansion of the fire station relocation and redevelopment to allow for larger utility firefighting equipment and vehicles. It talks about schools and other public facilities. There's an annexation plan in here, which is a very short section, and that one probably is moot now because most of that annexation was areas south of Sugar House, which were recently incorporated as Mill Creek City. And with the exception, I think, of the Party's historic nature park, there really is no longer any unincorporated area contiguous with Sugar House. So that part of the plan is probably worth removing. There's an entire section on implementation, and this is one that's always been a little bit challenging for me. We have really, I believe, as a professional planner and urban designer, I believe that Salt Lake City has really excellent master plans. We don't always have a great track record at implementing our plans, and I'm going to show you some of the sections of our city, of the Sugar House Master Plan that talk about projects. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that if you look at immediate, short-term, midterm, and long-term, the longest project identified in here is 10 years out. And this was from the 2001 master plan. So that means that all of the projects identified here could have or should have been completed by around 2010, maybe 2011. As I flip through these, you'll see that many of them are barely started or haven't even been initiated yet. And this is, a real opportunity, I think, for elected officials when we have election cycles that are happening every 2 years. The election that we just had is really consequential, and we have not only our own elected representative, Councilmember Fowler, who's with us tonight, but we also have 6 other elected officials on the city council that are also part of how we implement, because one council member can't do all of this. You have to have a majority of the council to fund and prioritize and, kind of look at all of the needs of the city as they prioritize things across the city. And then you also have the mayor's office. I think it's really important that we as a community understand what our plans are about and either update them if there are things that are no longer relevant, or continue working on implementing. And, capital improvement programs and many of the projects that Lynn Jacobs and others have been working on are all about implementing this. So, we as a community, if we're interested in seeing these things come to fruition, we have to kind of hold our elected officials' feet to the fire, if you will, and encourage them to be very familiar with what's in the plan and to continually work on getting it adopted. So these are some of the priorities. You see things in here that relate to enforcement, rail station in the Sugar House Business District. We're just barely working on that, what Lynn Jacobs was talking about earlier. Now, at one point, this master plan talks about a tracks expansion. And we actually, at one point, went a different route and created the streetcar in lieu of tracks. So it's a low speed, very community kind of supportive transit system rather than a high speed rail system, which would have only had one track station right in the heart of Sugar House. But we still don't have that streetcar station in the heart of Sugar House, over 20 years since this plan was adopted. So, all of these things are things that we can focus on. On the commercial side, again, you see a lot of different elements of this. Look right in the middle of the page, evaluate Highland Drive for 3-lane design. How many years have we been working on reconfiguring Highland Drive? And, we have transportation planners that are now focusing on this. This was identified as a project that should have happened in the first few years after this was adopted. And it's taken us a couple of decades to get there. Parks and open space, there's some great trail plan for Parties Creek Corridor. We're just about done with the Parties Trail. In fact, there'll be in the next week or so, completing the last section, beginning construction to complete the last section from South Salt Lake to the Jordan River. So it's really cool to see a lot of these projects finally coming to fruition. Mobility, again, you see a lot of projects on here that many of which are still necessary and needed, many of which have just kind of languished because we haven't had focus on implementing many of these things. Historic preservation, creating various historic programs, walking tours of the business district for historic preservation, looking at zoning that might support historic preservation and those sorts of things. These are all things that still remain to be implemented. So mainly I just wanted to share, kind of what some of the main pieces of that master plan are, where we can spend time as a community. If there are things that are outdated, we probably should update the master plan. Interestingly, the state law that enables cities, cities are subdivisions of the state, and the state law that enables cities to do planning says that its master plans should be updated every 5 years. We're now pushing 20 years since the Sugar House master plan was adopted. And so maybe it's time that we update the master plan. I've always been an advocate that we should probably be updating these plans incrementally every election cycle and making adjustments, checking off projects that have been done, bringing new projects in that emerge as things change. And I still think that that's a really effective way to do it. Our planning division isn't really set up to do that. And so we tend to see decades between master plan updates. But wouldn't it be awesome if we were continually kind of updating and revising these plans? That's a great way to bring elected officials and build that buy-in across all of the elected officials in the city that we need to implement. The last thing, just kind of for your information, the adopted master plans, I put in some websites. All of our adopted city master plans and Sugar House plans are at that website on the planning division site. There are a lot of current land use planning projects. They're all listed, and there's links on that page to where you can provide public comment, learn about upcoming open houses and meetings and things like that. This is a really important way to get involved in the planning of the community. Many of the planning projects right now are more citywide, but wouldn't it be awesome if we saw Sugar House updating its plan on this current project list pretty soon? And then finally, transportation projects, which are administered by a different division of the city, but are very closely tied. Many of the projects that Lynn Jacobs has shared with us tonight and at recent meetings are all on that current transportation, from the local link study to the streetcar and other things. So these are great resources to learn about what's going on, get involved and engaged, and not just things that apply to Sugar House, but some of the citywide plans would benefit our community, but they would benefit other parts of the city as well. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions or comments. Landon, if you want me to share any of this information, especially those links, I can put those in the chat for everybody. And
that would be great, Soren.
I'd be happy to turn it back over.
That was great. Thank you. There's a lot of positive comments in the chat. So do you mind typing that, and then we'll get to Councilwoman Fowler?
Yeah, happy to.
Okay. And if you could share that, I'd be happy to pass that out to everybody.
Will do.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Amy,
are you unmuted?
I think so. I am now.
Hey, congratulations again on winning.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I think that Ben is here. Ben, thank you so much. And Rainier, I don't know if Rainier is here or not, but it really was a great race. And it was, I think that we had a lot of really good discussions, and I want to thank you and the community council for pointing out some of my downfalls that I hope to work on, and allowing me an opportunity to kind of reflect on the things that I think that I have done well. So thank you all. And with that, Soren, that was an amazing presentation. Thank you. I know Soren has been involved in that master plan for a very long time, and I look up to Soren as a predecessor of mine, and thank you so much for your support and for all of the work that you've done for Sugar House. As an update, I would say the biggest update I hope to have soon is the Sugar House Business District design guidelines. Judy and I met with the Planning Commission to try to compromise and get some things that we knew were important for Sugar House here done within those design guidelines, the updated design guidelines. And I think that we are almost there, and hopefully we'll have it there by the end of the year. It has been a long time coming, so I think we're there. And it was a really productive meeting, and I appreciate Judy for taking some time out of her day to meet with all of us. The other update I have is that we are considering how we go back to in-person meetings, which is sort of strange, I'll be honest, in the sense that our numbers are continuing to increase, but the The city county building is open to the public at this point. And so there has been some pushback from residents and constituents throughout the city about us going back to an in-person meeting. So as chair, I have talked with city council staff and Lorna and the mayor's office about if we should go back and what that looks like. If and when we go back, at some point, I believe we will go back to in-person meetings. We will continue to do a hybrid meeting. I think there is a silver lining to any of this COVID and pandemic, is that we have recognized how technology can help, and technology can give access to people who may not have been able to have access before. And so when we go back to in-person meetings, we will do it in a hybrid fashion where you can still call in, log on, or come in person. I'm looking at my calendar right now. There are only 4 council meetings left until the end of the year. And we obviously just had an election, so there are 2 new council members. And so that will be exciting to see how that goes. And I'm excited to work with new people. And with that, I don't know that at this point I have any other updates. Thank you so much for always having me here.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Meeting adjourned. Thanks for coming tonight.
Hey, Landon, can I say one thing?
Yeah, please, Brandon.
Everybody, I hope that if you haven't forgotten what your own personal email address is that you used on the meeting tonight, that you jot note of it now.
We're gonna figure this out. All right, thanks, guys.